The thing about morning light was that it did not allow for half-truths. Hoseo had noticed this over the years, the way darkness permitted a certain softness in difficult things, a blurring of edges that made the hardest conversations slightly more bearable because the room itself was not insisting on clarity. But morning came in through windows with the specific intention of illuminating everything it touched, and what it was touching right now, in this small white hospital room, was a woman in a pale gray robe holding a sleeping newborn, a 7-year-old boy in a deeper gray textured suit standing beside her bed with his hand in hers, and a man in a fresh dark charcoal suit sitting in a chair beside them, both trying to decide the order in which the next several hours needed to happen. He had 3 things that needed doing before noon. The first was this room, this conversation, the one Mila had asked for. All of it, not the version you decide I can handle, and which he was going to give her completely and without reduction because she had earned the truth 7 years ago and had simply not been in a position to receive it. The second was Beck, who was waiting in the corridor with information that needed to be handled carefully, and without the kind of urgency that drew attention from people who were currently watching from 4 floors below an office that Hoseo owned. The third was Kang Soo-hyun, who had called at midnight and been declined, who had sent a message from a burner phone inside Hoseo's own building, who had been sitting 3 chairs to his left for 9 years, eating at the same tables and attending the same meetings and knowing everything that Hoseo knew, including, apparently, things that Hoseo had not known himself, like where Mila was and when she came back and what she meant. Hoseo was not going to think about Kang Soo-hyun right now. He was going to think about it later, in the correct way at the correct time, when the people in this room were somewhere safe and the situation had the structure it needed. Thinking about it now in this room with Jum standing 3 feet away from him would produce exactly the kind of expression on his face that his son would notice and file and ask about, and there were enough conversations happening today without adding that one. Jum, he said. Jum turned from the bed. His hand was still in Mila's, or rather Mila's hand was still holding his, which was a distinction that mattered, which Hoseo noticed, which he put somewhere to carry later. Yes, Daddy. Go and find Beck. Tell him I need the coffee he promised me. Jum looked at his father, then at Mila, then at his father again. There was no coffee promised, he said. No, Hoseo agreed. There was not. A beat. You need me to leave, Jum said. For a few minutes, Hoseo said. Yes. Jum considered this. He looked at Mila. Something passed between them. Not a word, not a gesture, just the particular current that had been running between these two since a dark Seoul street 2 nights ago. The current that Hoseo was only beginning to understand had been there long before either of them knew what it was. All right, Jum said. He did not release Mila's hand immediately. He held it for 1 more second, deliberate, unhurried, the gesture of someone who has decided how long something should last and is not going to be rushed out of it, and then he let go. He straightened his jacket. He walked to the door. At the threshold he paused and looked back at his father with those dark eyes. The coffee, he said, is going to be very bad from the hospital machine. I am sure it will be, Hoseo said. Jum left. The door closed softly behind him. Welcome to Black Silk Stories, the home of Afro-Korean stories that hit different. Subscribe, drop a comment, and do not go anywhere. This is only the beginning. The room was different with just the 2 of them in it. Not smaller, it was the same 4 walls and the same monitor and the same window showing the same Seoul morning. But the particular quality of the air changed when Jum left, the way a room changes when the thing that was holding 2 people at a comfortable conversational distance is no longer between them and the distance has to be negotiated directly. Mila looked at Hoseo. He looked at her. You sent him out, she said. Yes. Because what you are about to tell me is not for him. Some of it, Hoseo said. Yes. She shifted slightly in the bed, adjusting Sioa against her chest, the pale gray robe settling around her, and she looked at him with the dark almond eyes that had been deciding things since she was 24 years old and had never yet decided wrong when it mattered most. Then tell me, she said. Hoseo leaned forward in the chair, elbows on his knees. The same posture he had used with Jum in the apartment, the posture that said he was giving this his entire self and nothing was being held back. The man who threatened you 7 years ago, he said. I know who it was. Mila was very still. You know, she said. I know the name now, he said. I did not know then. If I had known then. He stopped. It does not matter what I would have done. The point is that I know now and I need you to understand what it means. Tell me the name, she said. Kang Soo-hyun, he said. The name meant nothing to her. She could see from his face that it was supposed to, that this name carried weight in his world that she did not have the context to feel, so she held it and waited for what came next. He has been with my organization for 9 years, Hoseo said. He sits 3 chairs to my left in every meeting. He knows everything I know, everything I decide, everyone I have ever, he paused, everyone who has ever mattered to me. He knew about me, Mila said. He knew about you, Hoseo said. 7 years ago he knew what you meant to me and he decided that was a liability, that you were a liability, that if something happened to him or to the organization the fact of someone I cared about who was outside the structure, was a weakness that could be used against me. So he removed me, Mila said. The words were flat and clean and entirely without self-pity. She was stating a fact, categorizing it, filing it in the correct place so she could deal with it correctly. He had someone deliver the threat, Hoseo said. Someone I have not yet identified, telling you that if you stayed you would be in danger, that the baby would be in danger. He knew about the pregnancy, Mila said. Yes. She looked at Sioa sleeping in her arms. She looked at the window, at the soul morning going about its business outside. I believed it, she said quietly. I want you to know that. I did not leave because I doubted you. I left because I believed it completely. Whoever delivered that message was. She paused. Convincing. I know, Hoseo said. I know you did not leave by choice. I knew it then too eventually. When the search found nothing for too long. When someone who wanted to leave simply leaves a trace somewhere eventually and you found none. I knew. But you stopped searching, she said. It was not an accusation. Her voice was even. But it was a thing that needed to be said and she was someone who said the things that needed saying. After 3 years, he said. Yes. I stopped. Why? He looked at her directly. Because continuing, he said, was becoming something I could not do and still be a father to Jum. And Jum needed a father who was present. Not one who was. He stopped again. Started again with more precision. I had to choose between looking for you and raising him. And he was here. And he needed me. The room was quiet. Outside the window a bird crossed the pale gold morning sky in a clean line. That is the right answer, Mila said softly. It did not feel right for a long time, Hoseo said. No, she said. I imagine it did not. Another silence. The kind that was not uncomfortable. The kind that was simply 2 people sitting with something large that they had both been carrying alone for 7 years and were only now beginning to put down in the same room. Wu Jin, Mila said, moving forward because she was someone who moved forward. Is he connected to Kang Soo-hyun? I believe so, Hoseo said. The level of access he had, finding you, getting close to you, maintaining the position for 2 years without a single visible mistake, that does not happen without infrastructure behind it. Someone with resources. Someone who knew exactly who you were and what finding you was worth. Worth to who? Mila said. To anyone who wanted leverage over me, Hoseo said simply. Mila absorbed this. So I was never just a target, she said. I was a message. You were a weapon, Hoseo said. That is what they were building. 2 years of access to your company, your finances, your decisions. 2 years of Yuna inside your organization feeding information. When they were ready to use it, when they needed something from me, they were going to use you to get it. What were they going to ask for? I do not know yet, Hoseo said. But I intend to find out. Mila looked at him, at the set of his jaw, at the particular quality of stillness around him that she had recognized from the first moment he walked through the hospital room door. The stillness of a man who has already decided what he is going to do, and is simply waiting for the correct sequence to execute it. Hoseo, she said. Yes. What are you going to do? He held her gaze. I am going to dismantle it, he said. All of it. Everything Kang built inside my organization. Every connection between him and Wu Jin. Every piece of access Yuna had to your company. All of it. Carefully and completely and in the correct order so that when it is done there is nothing left of it that can touch you or Jum or Sioa. And Kang Soo-hyun himself? He will be handled, Hoseo said. Not violently. But permanently. Mila looked at him for a long moment. I need to handle Wu Jin myself, she said. And Yuna. The legal side of it, M&M Group, the marriage, what they had access to. That is mine. I will not hand that to anyone. I know, Hoseo said. I mean it, she said. I built that company. Whatever they took from it or planned to take from it, the rebuilding of that is mine. I am not a person who is rescued and then steps back and lets someone else clean up the room. I know that too, Hoseo said. And the way he said it, with the specific recognition of a man who knew this woman, had always known this woman, was not surprised by a single word of this, made something move through Mila's chest that she was not going to examine right now. Then we understand each other, she said. We always did, he said. The door opened. Jum came back in carrying a small paper cup of coffee from the hospital machine with the expression of someone delivering something they find professionally embarrassing. It is terrible, he announced. As predicted. Hoseo almost smiled. Thank you, Jum. Jum placed the cup on the table beside Hoseo with the precise care of someone who has never handed anything to anyone carelessly in his life. Then he looked at Mila. Then at his father. Reading the room the way he always read rooms, for temperature, for what had shifted, for what the air was doing differently than when he left it. Did you tell her everything? He asked his father. Most of it, Hoseo said. The important parts? Yes. Jum nodded. Satisfied. He came and stood beside the bed again. His natural position in this room, Hoseo was noticing, the place his son's body defaulted to when he was in this space. And he looked at Mila with those serious dark eyes. Are you all right? He asked. Getting there, Mila said. The same answer she had given him before. But it meant something different now than it had an hour ago. The shape of it had changed. Good, Jum said. He looked at Sioa. She has been sleeping a long time, he observed. Newborns sleep most of the time, Mila said. It is how they grow. Jum considered this seriously. How long before she can have a conversation? He asked. Mila stared at him. Then she laughed. The second real laugh in 2 days. Surprised out of her again by this child who had no idea he was being funny because he was entirely sincere. A while, she said. You will have to be patient. I am patient, Jum said simply, as though this were simply a fact about himself that required no defense or elaboration, the way being 7 years old was a fact. Hoseo looked at his son standing beside the bed, looked at Mila looking at Jum with an expression she was not managing because she did not know she needed to manage it, an expression that was open and warm and specific in the way that expressions are specific when they are directed at someone they have a name for that they have not yet been able to say out loud. He set down the terrible hospital coffee. Jum, he said. Yes, Daddy. There is something Mila needs to know, he said. Something I should have told her this morning before you came back in. Jum looked at his father. Then he understood. His expression shifted, not afraid, not uncertain, but recalibrating. Moving into the particular stillness he used when something important was approaching, and he needed to be fully present for it. About me, Jum said. Yes, Hoseo said. About you. Mila looked between them. What about him? She said. Hoseo looked at her. Jum knows, he said simply. I told him last night. He knows who you are. The morning light held everything still. The monitor tracked its green heartbeat. Sioa slept on, unknowing and perfect. And Mila looked at Jum, at this boy she had met on a dark street 2 nights ago, this boy who had held her hand and stood between her and danger and called his father and stayed. And she looked at him with the full weight of what Hoseo had just said landing on her like something she had been bracing for without knowing she was bracing for it. You know, she said to Jum. Not a question. Yes, Jum said. His voice was completely even. His dark eyes were completely steady. He was looking at her the way he had been looking at her since the hospital room last night, with that particular openness, that unguarded quality she had noticed and not been able to name, and she understood now what she had been looking at. A child looking at his mother. Since when? She asked. Since last night, he said. My father told me when we got home. And you? She stopped. She pressed her lips together. She looked at the window for exactly 3 seconds and then she looked back at him. You came back this morning anyway. Of course, Jum said. Like there was no other possible response to that sentence. Like the idea of not coming back was so far outside the range of available options that it did not merit consideration. Jum, Mila said. Yes. Her voice was not entirely steady now. Last night, she said. On the street. Before you knew. Before any of this. Yes, he said. You held my hand, she said. Yes, he said. Why? She asked. And the question was enormous. It was not really about the street or the hand or that specific moment. It was about everything underneath those things. Everything a mother needed to know about the 7 years she had not been present for, compressed into one word. Jum looked at her. He was quiet for a moment, not because he did not have an answer, but because he was finding the right words for something that mattered, and he did not give important things words that did not fit them. Because, he said finally, you needed someone to. And I was there. Mila looked at this boy for a long time. At the round soft cheeks that were still entirely a child's. At the dark serious eyes that were entirely something else. At the deeper gray textured suit that was perfectly buttoned at 8 in the morning in a hospital room, as though the world had a dress code and he had read it more carefully than anyone else present. At her cheekbones in his face. She had not been looking at that. She had been managing it, filing it in the category of things to examine later when she had the structural integrity to examine it properly. But Jum was standing 3 feet away from her in the morning light saying because you needed someone to and I was there, and the category labeled later had just dissolved completely. Come here, she said softly. Jum walked to the bed. He stopped at the side of it, the same position he always took, close but not presuming, present but giving her the distance to decide what the distance should be. Mila looked at him. I need to tell you something, she said. And I need you to listen to all of it. Not just the beginning. All right, he said. She took a breath. I left, she said, when you were 6 months old. Yes, he said. My father told me. He told you the reason, she said. Yes. But he did not tell you what it was like, she said. To go. Because he does not know what it was like. Nobody knows what it was like except me. She paused. Can I tell you? Jum looked at her. Yes, he said. She looked down at Sioa for a moment. At the sleeping face. At the fingers. Then she looked back at Jum. You were 6 months old, she said. And you already had opinions. About everything. About which direction you wanted to face when someone was holding you. About what sounds you found interesting and which ones you decided were not worth your time. A pause. A breath. You had this look, even then this look that you still have. Where you are taking something in and filing it and the person showing it to you can see you doing it. You were 6 months old and you were already paying such close attention to everything. Jum was very still. I used to watch you sleep, Mila said. In the early mornings. Before everything started. I used to sit next to you and watch you sleep and think, this person is going to be extraordinary. Whatever this person becomes, whatever the world does with him, he is going to be extraordinary. The monitor tracked its green heartbeat. Hoseo was looking at the window. The morning I left, Mila said. I held you for a long time before I put you down. Longer than I should have. Because I knew that if I held you long enough I would not be able to put you down at all. And if I did not put you down I would not leave. And if I did not leave, she stopped. The person who threatened me was very specific about what would happen if I stayed. To me. To you. I believed them. And I chose your life over my presence in it. That is what it was. That is the whole of it. Jum was quiet for a moment. Outside the window a cloud moved across the sole morning sky and the light in the room shifted slightly, dimming for a moment and then returning, the way light did when it was reminding you it was still there. Did you think about me? Jum asked. After. Every day, Mila said. Without hesitation. Without softening it or qualifying it. Every single day. You were the reason I built M&M Group the way I did, not just to survive, not just to be untraceable, but because I needed to build something strong enough that whatever came next I would be able to face it. For you. Eventually. Someday. However that looked. You were coming back, Jum said. I was always coming back, Mila said. I just did not know when. Or how. Or what it would look like when I did. Jum looked at her for a long moment. It looked like a dark street, he said. And a red dress. Something broke open in Mila's chest and she let it. She did not manage it or redirect it or file it for later. She simply sat with her daughter in her arms and her son standing beside her bed, and she let it break open the way it needed to. She was not crying. She was Mila Adeyemi, and she did not cry in front of people as a general practice. But her eyes were very bright. And Jum, who had his father's eyes in her cheekbones and 7 years of paying attention to everything, saw it. And he did the thing he had done on the street, the thing that was simply who he was, that required no deliberation and no announcement. He reached out his hand, and she took it. And Hoseo looked at the window and the sole morning outside it, and did the thing he had been doing since he was a young man, learning that some feelings were too large for the face and needed somewhere else to go. He breathed through it. Quietly. Completely. The hospital discharge took 2 hours. Not because anything was medically complicated. Mila was strong and Seo was small but healthy, and the doctors were satisfied with both of them. But because leaving a hospital with a newborn involved a particular quantity of paperwork and instruction and the careful installation of a car seat that Beck had sourced from somewhere with the same quiet efficiency with which he sourced everything, appearing at the hospital room door at 10:30 with a car seat in one hand and a document folder in the other, and the expression of a man who had prepared for this specific morning. "You planned for this," Mila said, looking at the car seat. "He plans for everything," Jum said from the chair in the corner where he was sitting with his hands on his knees watching the discharge proceedings with focused attention. "The young master is correct," Beck said, without expression. But something in his eyes when he said, "young master," carried a warmth that his face was professionally unwilling to display. Mila looked at the car seat, then at Beck, then at Hoseo, who was standing near the door in his fresh dark charcoal suit and long dark coat with his phone in his hand. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere that is not connected to me," Hoseo said, "in any way that can be traced." "That is not an address," Mila said. "No," he said. "It is not." She looked at him. "Hoseo, it is safer," he said, "that you do not know the address until we arrive. Not because I do not trust you. Because the fewer people who know where we are going before we are there, the better." Mila held his gaze for a moment. Then she looked at Jum. Jum looked back at her with his serious dark eyes. "He is right," Jum said simply. "It is how it works." Mila looked at a 7-year-old boy telling her with complete naturalness how operational security worked, and she thought, not for the first time and certainly not for the last, that this child was going to require an entirely new category of understanding that she did not yet have and was going to have to build from scratch. "All right," she said. "Then let us go." She changed into the clothes Jiyeon had brought. A cream-structured blazer over a white silk blouse, dark wide-leg trousers, cream-heeled boots. All of it the correct size, all of it elegant and precise, the kind of outfit that said, "I know exactly who I am," even when everything around the person wearing it was in the process of being rebuilt from the foundation. She had asked Jiyeon when the clothes appeared how she had known the size. Jiyeon had said simply, "I did my research, Ms. Adeyemi," and left it at that. Mila had appreciated that enormously. She held Seowa against her chest in the cream blazer, and walked out of the hospital room with her shoulders back and her chin level. The wine-red Valentino gown had been folded carefully and placed in a bag that Beck carried without comment. The broken heels were in there too. She was going to fix those heels. She was going to wear that dress again. Not today, but someday, when she walked back into the world that Woo Jin and Yuna thought they had taken from her, and showed them what they had actually taken. Nothing. They had taken nothing that she could not rebuild with interest. The vehicle was different from the one Hoseo and Jum had arrived in. Larger. Blacked-out windows. A second vehicle behind it that Mila did not ask about because she was beginning to understand the grammar of this world. The language of protection that expressed itself in vehicles and positions and the number of people Beck could produce from apparently nowhere when the situation required them. Jum sat beside her in the back seat. Not directed there. Not placed. He simply walked to that side of the vehicle and got in beside her and sat with his hands on his knees and his back straight and said nothing, which was exactly what the moment required. Seowa was in the car seat between them. Jum looked at the baby for a long moment. "She is still sleeping," he said. "She does a lot of that," Mila said. "Is it normal for them to sleep this much?" "Yes," Mila said. "It is very normal. How will you know if something is wrong?" "She will tell me," Mila said. Loudly. Jum considered this. "She does not look like someone who will be loud," he said. "Give her a few days," Mila said. Something moved through the corner of Jum's mouth. Not quite a smile but the cousin of one. The expression that arrived on his face when something struck him as worth acknowledging but did not require a full smile to acknowledge it. Mila noticed it. Filed it. Added it to the growing collection of things she was learning about this child. This person, who was hers in the most fundamental way and also entirely his own in every way that mattered. In the front seat Hoseo was on the phone. His voice was low and even and she could not hear the specifics of what he was saying, which she understood was intentional. Beck was driving again. The Seoul streets moved past the blacked-out windows in fragments. A fruit stall, a school gate, 2 elderly women walking with matching bags. The ordinary city doing its ordinary things. "Are you scared?" Jum asked. She looked at him. "Of what specifically?" she said. Of all of it, he said. Of what comes next. Of Wu Jin and the people behind him. Of starting over. She thought about this honestly. I have started over before, she said. 7 years ago I started from nothing with a baby coming, and people I could not trust, and a world I had to rebuild by myself. And I built the M&M Group. She looked at the Seoul streets through the window. Starting over does not frighten me. I know how to do it. But this time, Jum said, you are not by yourself. She looked at him. He was looking at the baby in the car seat with his profile to her, the profile that was hers in miniature, the cheekbone and the set of the jaw, and he said it the way he said most things. Simply. Without asking for a response. Stating a fact. No, she said quietly. This time I am not. The safe house was not what she expected. She had expected something functional and temporary, the kind of place that existed to serve a purpose and made no effort to be anything beyond that. What Beck pulled into instead was a residential building in a quiet part of the city she did not immediately recognize, the kind of neighborhood that the rest of Seoul had not gotten around to noticing yet. Old trees on both sides of the street, buildings that had been standing for 40 years and been maintained with the kind of quiet pride that did not require anyone's attention or approval. The apartment was on the 8th floor. Large. Clean. Furnished with the kind of careful attention that said someone had prepared this space for actual living, not temporary occupation. Warm-toned walls. A sitting room with wide windows showing the tree-lined street below. A kitchen that had been stocked. 2 bedrooms. A smaller room beside one of the bedrooms that had been set up. And this was the thing that stopped Mila in the doorway, as a nursery. A simple white crib. A small chest of drawers. A soft rug on the floor. A single painting on the wall, gentle abstract, the colors of early morning. She stood in the doorway of that room for a long moment. When did you do this? She said. Last night, Hoseo said from behind her. After I left the hospital. She turned and looked at him. You came home, she said. You had that conversation with Jum. You received that message. And then you arranged this. There were a few hours before morning, he said. Simply. As though this were a reasonable use of a few hours before morning. Hoseo, she said. You needed somewhere to bring the baby, he said. It needed to be ready. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked back at the nursery, at the simple white crib, at the morning-colored painting on the wall. Thank you, she said. And the 2 words carried everything she was not going to say right now. Not because she did not feel it, but because this was not the moment and they both knew it, and they had always had, even 7 years ago, the particular understanding of 2 people who knew how to carry things until the correct moment arrived for putting them down. There is one more thing, Hoseo said. She turned. Your lawyer, he said. I need you to contact them today. From a clean phone, Beck will give you one. You need to begin the legal process for the marriage. And for M&M Group. I know, she said. Wu Jin will move quickly when he realizes you are not returning and not responding, Hoseo said. He will try to access whatever he can before the legal structure closes around him. He will find, Mila said with a quietness that was more dangerous than volume, that I have been closing the legal structure around him since the moment I walked out of that penthouse. He simply does not know it yet. Hoseo looked at her. You made calls that night, he said. I made one call, she said. My lawyer. Before my phone died. I told her to begin the process immediately. Whatever she found, whatever she needed, begin. Your phone died before she answered, he said. She did not need to answer, Mila said. She knows me. A missed call at that hour from my number means one thing. She began. A beat of silence. Then Hoseo said, I have missed that. She looked at him. Missed what? She said carefully. The way your mind works, he said. The way you are always 3 steps ahead and make no announcement of it. The air between them changed its weight. Mila held his gaze for exactly 2 seconds longer than was entirely comfortable for either of them. Then Jum appeared in the hallway in his deeper gray textured suit with Seoa's changing bag over one small shoulder, which he was carrying with the same gravity he carried everything, as though a baby's changing bag over a pinstripe shoulder was a perfectly natural thing, and said, Where would you like this? And the moment passed. Or was set aside, which was not the same thing. By midday the apartment had the particular quality of a space that was becoming inhabited. Jian had taken a position near the building entrance. Beck was outside. Two other people Mila had not been introduced to but whose presence she was aware of, occupied positions she could not see but understood were there. Hoseo sat at the kitchen table with his phone and his list. Jum sat across from him with a book, a thick one, something about cartography, which Mila found both entirely unsurprising and quietly charming, reading with the concentrated stillness of a child who could go somewhere completely when a book was good enough. Mila sat on the sofa in the sitting room with Coa in her arms, looking out the window at the tree-lined street below and the clean soul midday sky above it, and she did the thing she was very good at, the thing that had built M&M Group and navigated every impossible room and survived every impossible morning. She thought about Wu Jin in the penthouse with his whiskey and his certainty. She thought about Yuna with her neat charcoal blazers and her small careful smile and 18 months of access to everything Mila had built. She thought about Kang Soo-hyun. A name, a presence, a man she had never met who had reached into her life 7 years ago and rearranged it completely. She thought about what she was going to do about all three of them. And by the time Coa woke up and announced herself loudly, exactly as predicted, Mila had the beginning of a plan that was clean and legal and total, and that none of them were going to see coming. She looked down at her daughter. "There she is," she said softly. From the kitchen doorway Jum appeared, book in hand, looking at the baby with the expression he wore when something had confirmed a theory he already had. "I told you," Mila said, loudly. "Yes," Jum said. He walked into the sitting room and sat in the chair across from the sofa and opened his book again and said without looking up, "What does she need?" "Feeding," Mila said. "And after that?" "Changing probably." "And after that?" "Sleeping again most likely." Jum turned a page. "This is very repetitive," he said. "For now," Mila said. "It gets more interesting." When she can have a conversation," Mila said. The corner of Jum's mouth moved again. He turned another page. And Hoseo, standing in the kitchen doorway where neither of them could see him, looked at his son and the woman who was his son's mother sitting in a sitting room in the midday light with a newborn between them, the specific domestic ordinary extraordinary scene of it, and he felt something settle in his chest that had not been settled in 7 years. Not resolved. Not finished. There was too much still to do, too much to dismantle and rebuild and account for anything to be finished. But settled. Like the foundation of something that had been damaged was still there underneath everything. Still solid. Still capable of holding weight. His phone buzzed. "Beck. Boss. Kang Soo-hyun just left the building. He is moving. Looks like he knows something has changed." Hoseo looked at the message. He looked at the sitting room. At Jum turning a page. At Mila looking down at Coa with that expression she wore when she thought nobody was watching. Open and specific and entirely unmanaged. He typed back to Beck. "Let him move. I want to know where he goes. Everyone he contacts. Do not approach. Do not alert. Just watch." He put the phone in his pocket. He straightened his jacket. He was going to let Kang Soo-hyun believe for a little while longer that the situation was still what it was yesterday. That Hoseo was reacting rather than acting. That the advantage still belonged to the people who had been building this for 9 years. Let him believe that. Because the moment Kang Soo-hyun felt safe was the moment he would make the mistake that would unravel everything he had built. And Hoseo intended to be watching very carefully when that happened. He walked back to the kitchen table. He sat down. He picked up his pen. And on the list in front of him he drew a single line through the first item, which read, "Get them somewhere safe," and moved to the second, which read, "Find out what Wu Jin was supposed to deliver and to whom," because that answer was going to tell him everything. And in a penthouse across the city, Wu Jin-cha sat at a table set for two with cold food and an unanswered phone and the first real feeling of something he had not felt in 2 years of carefully constructed certainty. Fear. Not of Mila. He was not afraid of Mila. He was afraid of who was with her. And he was right to be. But what he did not know, what none of them knew yet, was that the call he was about to make to the person who had sent him was going to be intercepted. And the conversation on that call was going to answer every question Hoseo had written on his list. Every single one. To be continued in Episode 5. Episode 4 of Daddy, I Found Them, and We Need a Moment. Jum held her hand. Mila told him about the morning she left. Coa announced herself exactly as predicted. And somewhere across the city Wu Jin just picked up a phone that is already being watched. Episode 5 is where everything Hoseo needs lands in his hands, and what he does with it is going to change every single life in this story. Subscribe so you are first when it drops. Drop a comment and tell us. When Mila said I was always coming back, did you feel it? Share this with someone who needs a story that does not let them go. Black Silk Stories. We are nowhere near finished, and that is exactly the point.